We are live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We had a lot of technical difficulties, but we're working them out. We have Andy here live from Kona, which is really exciting. Say hi, Andy.
Guys.
So we'll kick things off right away. And we're here at Kestrel headquarters, if I didn't say that already. So we'll kick things off right away. I'll ask a quick question, and then we have a lot of good fan questions that we'll get to. So let's start things off with a little wrap-up of your season, Andy. So 4 wins, top 5, and I think everything you've raced, 2 podiums in addition to that. Basically, how are you feeling maybe compared to last year, heading into sort of the ultimate pinnacle of your season, what you've been waiting for, and after you sort of structured things differently this year, moving into Kona?
So I guess this year was structured a little differently, strictly because of circumstance. So sometimes you like to structure things on your own volition, and then other times things are dictated to you, so you have to kind of react to them. And that was the premise behind 2014 for me. It was more of a reaction on my behalf to what turned out to be a stress fracture in my fibula. Sorry, femur would be a little bit worse. My fibula at this time last year, I didn't know it, but there was no way I could run or race on a broken leg. It's just not going to happen. It took a while to recover, and I kind of slow played the beginning of the year in terms of my running fitness. I really tried to focus on my riding and my swimming, and I ran as much as I could tolerate, but it still wasn't much. Since maybe mid-August, I've been totally healthy. This is probably the first time I've come into Kona healthy of my 6 times racing it. And it's not just healthy because I've avoided activity. It's healthy because I've taken the right precautionary steps in terms of maintenance, physical therapy, stretching, manual therapy, getting massage, things like that. But also because I've been structuring my workouts pretty systematically to build up until and through October. So I spent the past 3 weeks at 10,000 feet growing my mountain man beard to prepare for this race. I've been able to ride and run and swim every day whenever I wanted to, how much I wanted to, how hard I wanted to. So now it's a matter of putting it together, and I'm certainly happy with the process. And I tried to use every lesson I've ever learned to apply it to this race. I think I'll have a good one, but you never know.
Well, speaking of lessons, we have interesting questions from the fans, and one of them is, how do you deal with cramps during the bike leg? It's a long ride.
Yeah.
So cramping, what do you do about it?
All right, so I'll equate directly to you. I sympathize with you because I've experienced cramps. I kind of break them up into 2 types of cramps. There's kind of like the gut, stomach, side stitch cramp, and then there's the muscle cramp. And I would differentiate between the 2. I think the muscle cramp can be kind of worked through by thinking about mechanics in terms of your pedal stroke, how you're driving through the pedals, as well as your positioning on the bike. And you can kind of massage it maybe if you have a chance to kind of soft pedal things, or maybe stop pedaling for a while if you're with the wind. As far as like a gut cramp, again, that can be worked through. You probably have to pull back a little bit on the intensity with either cramp, but with the gut cramp, you gotta. What I try to do is I'll either try to kind of stretch my tummy out, sit up, maybe arch my back a little bit, maybe massage it with my hands, and then I go with really clean liquid, like just go with water for a little bit or whatever your body is craving at that time. Oftentimes the gut cramps are caused by just really intense riding, and muscular cramps can be electrolyte based or mechanic based. So it kind of you got to kind of diagnose the issue and then attack it once you know what the problem is.
Awesome insight. A second fan question we have, before we came on, Andy, you were talking about the temperature in Kona, which maybe it'd be interesting to share that with viewers. And this question specifically was, how do you transition from cold to humid conditions?
Yeah, so you can, as an athlete, you can train towards a ton of different environments and different stimulus. You can train towards cold, hot, humid, dry, low in terms of altitude, high for altitude. You can train towards anything. What becomes a stumbling block is probably combining the two. Like, oh, I want to try to do a cold, low area in terms of altitude. Well, then you just have to look at different locations. Like, okay, I've got to go north. What's really difficult is when you try to do high altitude and hot weather. It's really difficult to do both, and I don't know if it's possible. I chose this year, I chose altitude, and by altitude it was pretty extreme. It was 10,000 feet. To be precise, it was probably 9,730 feet, but we'll just call it 10,000. So I prepared for altitude to kind of heighten my oxygen carrying capacity within my blood, and I just kind of wore a couple layers to prepare for the heat. I think you can prepare for the heat if you come down, but then you lose kind of the extra blood carrying capacity. So it's a give and take, and you kind of got to figure out what you thrive under.
So Andy, actually the next question from one of the fans is related to the time that you train when you're going to race in high altitude cities. So if you have a high altitude race.
Yep, like Boulder or Tahoe.
What do you need before in preparation for that?
Yeah. So I mean, not everybody has the opportunity to train at a high level for an extended period of time at a high altitude because they have families and jobs and lives. But if it's possible, there's kind of a fine line. I think you can fake it for about 5 days. You might suffer within the first 5 days, but you can probably fake your way through it pretty well. For me, it takes about 6 days to really be able to get that first good sleep, and I think that's your key indicator. I think it's very individual, and the litmus test that you need to run through personally is, okay, when I go to a ski resort that's high, or when I go visit friends or family at high altitudes, what's the first night that I can sleep through the night uninterrupted and without tossing and turning? I think that's your key indicator for, and then that's when you start to make the physiological adaptations that are you're building red blood cells. So I would say, if you have ideal conditions, 11 or 12 days, supreme conditions after 19 days.
So going back to what you just said, you've been in altitude for 3 weeks right now. My guess is you're considering this training the best option to go into Kona. Why is that?
So I looked at the demands of the race day, and what it means to perform well. How do you perform well when the requirements are 8+ hours of fairly to very demanding physical output. And because of the strict endurance of the day, the more oxygen-carrying blood cells, red blood cells, that I have in my body will equate to a perceived level of easier exertion. That's the plan. I'll just have more oxygen when my muscles are demanding it. I'll be able to give it to them easier. So that's what I decided to go with. I can't do it all the time. Life kind of gets in the way. But for a one-off event, I feel like I've performed extremely well when I've come down from very high altitude. I mean, granted, I live at 6,200 feet, so that's high altitude to begin with. But at about 6,000 feet, it gets exponential every 1,000 feet you go up. So I think that if I were a sprinter, or if I was a track cyclist, or 400-meter runner, 100-meter freestyle swimmer, it wouldn't work. I don't think I can go fast enough at high altitude. But I have to be honest with you, there's nothing that Ironman athletes do that is very fast. And in terms of pure speed in the sports world, we're not that fast. We can just do it for a really long time. So knowing that, you can play into the demands of the day. And because I don't need 100% of every muscle fiber to fire completely for 19 seconds, that's not the requirement of the day. I need it for 8 hours and hopefully a few minutes, maybe less minutes.
Okay, next question from the fans is they were actually wondering if you could tell us about your input on the new 4000 that you'll be racing, and like your custom build. They want to know everything about it.
Okay, so the biggest change on the 4000 was the rear triangle for 2015. That's the bike I'm going to race this weekend. So the rear triangle is just a little bit more adaptive when it comes to the wheel choices I can make. I can ride a lenticular disc that bows out. I can ride a deeper rimmed wheel or a shallow wheel. It has options. I'd say that's probably the biggest offering and change from the 14 to the 15 for the 4000. In terms of how things are customized, what I did at the beginning of the year is I looked at what the wind sees and frontal resistance. So what the biggest obstacle that I have to overcome as an athlete is frontal resistance. I'm not the smallest guy out there, so any little improvements I can make on either my machinery or my body is definitely going to help. And so we looked at what the wind saw in terms of the front profile of the bike, and so that's the tire, the wheel, the headset, the bars, where my hands are placed, the braking cable, and then in terms of where things are threaded, we kind of threaded it through my aero bars down into the top tube of the 4000, and so everything is hidden away from the wind. There's nothing really exposed, so it becomes more of a matter of me getting my head out of the way. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm focusing on in terms of aerodynamics on race day, because everything else has been looked at. We've looked at brakes, cabling, housing, tire choices, wheel choices, and how it all designs and fits into my 4000, and and as well as my body type. So I think I'm a lot more narrow when it comes to what the wind sees, and it all starts with the 4000.
So I also want to know preparation for Saturday. So is it done, or it matters a lot what you do tomorrow and Friday?
No.
Are you sitting down all the time? Are you not walking to get food? Is Lisa bringing you food? Because I know how you can reserve energy, even if you're a pro cyclist. But what are you doing from today, from now until race day, just to continue preparing for that moment?
So, the haze in the barn for sure. There's not anything I can do in terms of preparing physically for a 50-minute swim, a 4.5-hour bike ride, and a 2:45 marathon. I'm not going to enhance my performance by training more or putting more deposits into my muscles or my body. The key within the last couple of last days is staying out of your own way, how to not sabotage your own race day. So some of the keys are, don't be a moron and stand around on your feet. Like, I've got my kids here with me, but I'm not at the pool with them throwing them around. I'm not surfing the break with them. So I'm making small choices that these are the kind of the last-second sacrifices that that are necessary to stay out of my own way. Because I want to be in dad mode because we're in a beautiful place, but boy, I'm going to be a lot happier camper when I perform well on Saturday than kind of detonating my own race by being a moron on Thursday or Friday. So I'll be watching some Netflix and hanging out.
Good. Good. How about, and we're wrapping things up. We only have a few more questions, but how about in relation to last year? I'm sure it was pretty heartbreaking that you didn't get to race last year, sort of last minute. What about, does that change things for this year, like your motivation level, and that you're sort of coming back with a vengeance almost?
I think sometimes that can be a trap in terms of like, I didn't get to run yesterday, so I'm going to run twice as much today. I didn't get the opportunity to race last year, so I'm going to train twice as much this year. You get the mentality as a type A personality or as a triathlete. Sometimes they're hand in hand. Sometimes they're not, but a lot of times they're hand in hand. Where you look for makeups, like or redemption. So I think that might be a little bit of a trap for my mentality. What I looked at was, what did I do right? What part of the process was right? What do I need to fix? Where do I think I would have excelled? Where do I think I would have faltered? But at the end of the day, the woulda, coulda, shoulda is no way to execute a career. It's no way to parent. It's no way to teach. It's not the mentality that I want to subscribe to. Is the woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's not a healthy way to go through things. I think you can look at the process and find out how to do things better, what worked, what didn't work, and apply it moving forward without being a moron. I looked at strength, pure muscle strength, as an area of weakness for me. So I did a lot more explosive work starting last November. So it's 12 months, of honest, hard work in terms of being a little bit more explosive, a little bit more powerful. So I kind of looked at areas like that. Am I riding my bike long enough? I am certainly riding it hard enough, but am I riding it long enough? Am I training the right system? And so I've been riding my bike a lot. I've been doing a little bit more explosive work in the weight room. But I did a lot of things right yet last year. It just kind of didn't get the opportunity to shine. Boy, I'd sure like to put together a good race. I think I've done good here, and I've done poorly. and I haven't done great. So I feel like I can do great. I just have to do it.
So Saturday early in the morning, about to race. You have so many people that support you and so many people that cheers for you. You're the best American to always to finish this race. You have a big weight on your shoulders, sort of speaking, but you have a great opportunity. This is the biggest stage in triathlon. All the world is looking. What goes through your mind in that moment when you're starting that race? Tell us, take us to that moment.
Oh wait, coming back, maybe? No. Okay. Hi guys. It looks like we may have lost Andy, and that was a really great question prompt, and we will hopefully get you the answer if he happens to arrive back in, but if not, we'll still find a way to get you the answer. But thank you very much for joining. I still hope we didn't get the last question, but I hope we got lots of. I really appreciate all the fan input this time. I think we got some awesome questions from you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. A reminder about Saturday. So you can watch live on Ironman.com. Twitter, that's one of the best ways to follow what's going on in the race. So the hashtag is IMKona. And then, there, of course, NBC does a showing in November. But Saturday, Ironman.com or Twitter. And make sure you follow Andy.
Exactly, Andy. We'll be rooting for you. Good luck.